Knock it out here. Oh, that's a lot of people in there.
Yup. That's why I'm running away.
You walked in, you fucking mad lad. I'm coming to you.
Bye. Now, after playing the New World beta, I ended up making a lot of mistakes along my journey. However, my main approach was simply to just experiment and figure out what worked best for me, and then find ways that I wanted to play the game. So you can look at this as sort of a quick tips in order for me to remember how I should be approaching the game come the full launch. Now, I'm sure other people have different methods and different ways of doing certain things. This is in no means a perfect leveling strat or anything of that sort. It's simply just some basic tips that I think people should know in going into the full launch of New World. The first tip I have is to pick up missions at the town board. Whatever settlement you're at, just go to the town board, pick up a bunch of those missions, and try and do them quite a bit. Early on, it will definitely help you get some of the crafting XP and a bunch of other XPs for various skills, and then it also teaches you a lot of the basics. This is a good way to just sort of start dipping your toes into all of what New World has to offer in a very simple format, along with giving you some decent XP. And one thing I encourage everybody to do is respec as often as you can before level 20. You get an option to respec for free on all your weapons and everything else. I think it's extremely important to just experiment with a lot of the weapons, a lot of the different trees. When I played, I got almost to level 20 without respecing because I didn't realize. And then same with my weapons, I didn't realize that I could respec them for free, and I thought I was dedicated to the options that I chose. I think it's really good to just sort of figure out what works best for you before committing to it after level 20. I've sort of already figured out what I want, which leads me to the next tip. And that is to min-max your build. Now, this might seem a little bit weird for a lot of people that are used to playing MMOs where you kind of dip into a lot of different things and sort of experiment as you go, but genuinely if you min-max your build in the sense of putting all your points into strength, everything constitution, making sure your weapon mastery is only speccing into the abilities you're using, and just trying to make sure you're getting the most of everything, you're going to have a much better build. You're going to have a much better fighting and everything. It might be hard to know what you're going to min-max, which is why I say to experiment a lot early. Another thing that I needed to do a lot more of, this is one thing I completely overlooked when I was playing, is that I was not gathering much. I really needed to gather a lot more, start farming a lot more. Just, as I'm going from place to place, just fill up that inventory and then dump it in a storage. This is something that I really shouldn't have overlooked as much as I did, but my issue was that I was just so caught up in trying to figure out how the weapons worked and trying to PvP that when it came to me going to craft stuff, I realized I had no resources. And then when I spent an hour just going around and farming stuff, I ended up getting tons of XP. I was able to craft so many things, and a lot of stuff that I crafted ended up being so much better than the gear that I currently had. So I'd say always be gathering as you're out there. And which leads me obviously to storing your items. I know it seems kind of obvious, but one thing you can do is just, if you don't know what to do, you're waiting for your friends, just go out, gather a bunch of resources, and just store a bunch of it away. You never know when you're going to need it. Having your storage shed at its max capacity, as well as trying to increase it, is always useful for whenever you need to craft. It's going to be right there for you. And the next tip obviously being to craft. I know this again, a lot of these might seem obvious, but these are honestly things that I overlooked. In most MMOs, I actually kind of ignore a lot of the crafting, and I end up just going to a lot of the vendors and stuff to buy my resources. I also find that sometimes when you do dungeons and expeditions or whatever it may be called, depending on the game, a lot of those drops end up being better. A lot of the stuff that you really need for endgame, you don't necessarily have to craft. But I found in this game, crafting is actually super important. You can end up getting some extremely powerful stuff while you're leveling. Usually you just kind of pick up whatever you get from mob drops, but a lot of the stuff that you can craft is going to be significantly better. A lot of the best endgame stuff is crafted, and there's just a lot of exciting things that you can do within crafting, increasing your mining luck. You can increase your storage space, tons of stuff like that. So do not overlook the crafting in this game. Now, when you get a bit later into the game, around level 25, something that I would suggest doing is having joined a company by that time. If not, try and find a company at this point. get a couple friends together and go around and kill a lot of these corrupted groups. As you can see, I'm trying to solo it, and even at a level 30, it's a little difficult to do. I can kill some of the swarms, but it ends up being a bit of a challenge. Now, if you have a group of people, you can do this much more successfully, and it gives you some significant XP, along with giving you a lot of weapon XP. This is something you should definitely not ignore. You should also try and find the mini dungeons around the world. There are a ton of places where you can go and do these essentially mini dungeons where you run around and kill a bunch of mobs. You get some decent loot and a lot of XP. Another tip I have is to duel as often as you can. Maybe not spend your entire time doing it, but you know what, if you're roaming around and someone challenges you to a duel, I genuinely think you should be doing that. PvP is a big element of this game, and this is a fantastic way to hone in on your skills. It also allows you to notice a lot of the weaknesses that you have and a lot of things you're doing incorrectly. For me, I was never blocking in most fights, and then when I started dueling and I was getting killed by people who were blocking, I started throwing in blocks, and I had a lot more success in PvP. It's really important to figure out how people play, and then also figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are so that you can work on it. With a little practice, you'll be able to handle people who are 20 levels higher than you. Oh, I beat the level 50. Let's go. Let's go. And this leads me into my other tip. You should be flagged for PvP. There's going to be plenty of times where you run into other people and nobody's flagged for PvP. This means that you honestly can just roam around with that extra 5 XP percentage and just level up that little bit faster. But the times that you do run into people who are flagged for PvP, you're going to get a nice boost if you do kill them. Another thing is that this is a PvP game. You should really get used to the PvP systems and learn how to succeed in a PvP battle. The wars and the territory wars and open world PvP are the bread and butter of what makes this game New World. So honestly, just flag for PvP and start learning as early as you can. I can understand, like I said, if you're either alone or if you're massively underleveled versus the people who are flagged for PvP around you, and you just need to kind of get by that. But when you're in an area where you're even, or if you're ahead, just start flagging for PvP. You're going to find that that is the core aspect of this game, and it's so much more enjoyable to play that way.
There's a boss fight at the top, and then there's an altar you have to find at the top as well. I'll leave your screen open so I can watch you.
Come back for it again? I mean, what is a multiplayer game without a little shit talk, am I right? Now, the next thing I have to say is do not do the faction quest too early. I know this might seem a little counterintuitive, but honestly, I spent so much time early game doing a bunch of these faction missions, and then I realized I wasn't really getting any XP, and the rewards I was just kind of wasting my money on, and it wasn't actually progressing any of my crafting skills because I was just buying a bunch of these. The reward you get for faction missions late game is so much better than it is early game that I honestly feel like I wasted a lot of my time getting all those faction rewards at an early level. Honestly, just wait. It's so much more efficient late game. Anyway, thanks for listening to these tips and tricks. These are a lot of things that I just learned from playing and things that I'm going to utilize in the full launch of the game. And I hope this helps any of the new players who haven't played, or anybody who got into the beta maybe a little bit too late or didn't have enough time to play in order to figure out some of the things that they needed to know for the full launch. There are tons of guides out there that tell you exactly how to level up really fast and other individual specific aspects like crafting and how to do a lot of that. These were more just a vague tips and tricks that I found would be very useful when I'm going into the full launch, and I wanted to share it with everybody. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more New World content.